So let's talk about recovery. So by now you should have all the basics in place. If you're doing all those things that we've already talked about on a consistent level, your recovery should be on point. The basics that you need in order to ensure at least a minimal level of minimal level of effective recovery, not necessarily optimal, is to make sure that you're eating the right amount of calories. We've already talked about that. Make sure you're eating enough protein. We've already talked about that. Hydration. Make sure you're drinking enough fluids on a daily basis. We've already talked about that. And sleep. Sleep's really important. Get a good night's sleep every single night. At least 7 hours for an adult is the minimum required amount of sleep. If you're not getting a good night's sleep, sort it the fuck out. It could be that, like, insomnia isn't like just something to be ignored. Oh, sleep is just something that happens to other people. It's a red flag. Something's not right. Either your nutrition's not right or your mind or mental state isn't right. More often than not, it's a combination of the two. You get the nutrition right, you're eating enough calories, you're eating enough protein, you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates, you're not eating anything that is reacting with you in a bad way, you're adequately hydrated, but you're not overhydrated, so you're getting up for a piss every 2 hours. If all that's on point and you're still not getting to sleep or staying asleep, you're probably stressed about something either physically or emotionally, and you need to get on top of that. Keep a journal, write down your thoughts, write a job list for the next day. Learn to meditate, do some yoga before you go to bed. If you're waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock every morning without fail, and it's like, that's the cortisol alarm clock. There's something stressing you out. If it's, it might be unconscious and you might not even be aware that you're under some level of stress or you're worrying about something. And if writing it down isn't doing you any good, then maybe you should be seeking some kind of professional intervention on that. Maybe go and see a CBT practitioner or a counsellor of some kind. But sleep is super important, and if you're not getting your sleep sorted, it's, if sleep is constantly disruptive, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but if it's constantly disruptive, that's a red flag. Investigate it, get it sorted, get yourself well. Okay, so that's the main thing. Get all that right and you're probably fine. Post-event, as early as possible, you want to be getting a 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate to protein. That could be a drink, chocolate milk. If you're not lactose intolerant, just have a bottle of chocolate milk off the shelf from the supermarket. And then again an hour later, or have your recovery drink and then a normal meal, which would be the case for most people most of the time. It could be a protein shake and a banana, but ideally, as I say, you want that 3-to-1 ratio. Chocolate milk's the ideal ratio, and then just eat a meal, a normal balanced meal afterwards. And tart cherry juice, talked about in the previous one. Tart cherry juice has been proven to have some positive effects on recovery, and it also might help you get to sleep at night. So have some tart cherry juice after the race and have some again in the evening before you go to bed. Okay, so that is the basic stuff about recovery that you need to know. This bit over here, a bit more interesting, a bit more important, and this all basically relates to total daily energy expenditure and getting your calories right. It's really important. So RED-S stands for Relative Energy Deficiency Syndrome. Used to be known as the female triad. The triad is still part of the collection of signs and symptoms of RED-S, but it doesn't only affect women, it affects men too. If you have a high training load, particularly if you're a lean athlete, if you're somewhat overweight athlete, it's less likely to be an issue because you've still got a lot more stored energy in your subcutaneous tissues. If you're a lean athlete with a high training volume and you're consuming fewer than 30 calories per kilogram of body weight consistently, you're at risk of RED-S. Some of the signs and symptoms of that are going to be low bone mineral density, which could lead to breaks and fractures, higher injury rate, just poor recovery, stress, depression, anxiety, joint pain, muscle cramps. And part of the female triad is amenorrhea. For men, it affects you in terms of libido. So if you're getting brewer's droop and you're not drinking alcohol, it could be that you're just stressing your body out, you're not eating enough. Amenorrhea, if you're not clear on what that is, that's when a female loses her female cycle, and that's obviously not a good place to be. So if you're consuming fewer than 30 calories per kilogram of body weight, you're at risk of RED-S and female triad. Ideally, you want to be consuming at least 35 calories per kilogram, at least, and probably more in the realm of 40. And the most recent evidence I've shown suggests that 40 calories per kilogram of body weight is the minimum amount to reverse amenorrhea for female triad sufferers. So it is really important, get your calories right. Don't just train and think that you can get away with not eating much, because eventually your body's going to start breaking down and you're going to get ill, and it's not going to be nice. Okay, so that's recovery in a nutshell. Just eat sensibly, look after yourself, get a good night's sleep, stay hydrated, and for fuck's sake, eat enough food. Laters.